Oh no, what's leaking now? Well, that can only be one thing. Hey everyone, and welcome to Carrie's Garage. And on this episode, we got a leak on the Chevy. Looks like the heater core is started peeing on the floor. I went and got a new one at the auto parts store. Actually, fairly affordable. Kind of a nice surprise. So follow along and let's get it out and get the heater core replaced. It's been a really long time since I've done a heater core on a square body Chevy like this. The Suburban started having a problem with the heater core right after I got it, so I replaced that one. This one will be a lot easier because on the diesels, they have extra insulation everywhere, and that was a total pain to deal with. So this doesn't have any of that, so all the bolts are accessible, which is super awesome. There's two lines for the heater core going in right there. I'm gonna have to disconnect those guys. And then we're gonna have to spend some time up under the dash. The glove box has to come out. There's a couple of pieces of ductwork we're going to have to get out. And then there's 4 or 5 studs that go through. You can actually see them right here. These go through to the firewall. We need to disconnect those. The whole unit will slide out, come down, and then we'll have access to the heater core. My biggest worry is this has never been touched before, and there's a couple of pieces of plastic in here, like the blend door attachment likes to break all the time, so I hope that doesn't break because that is a total pain to deal with. But we'll take it a little at a time. First, let's go ahead and get this glove box door off and kind of get an idea of what all we need to remove under here. Then we'll pull the hoses, drain the coolant, and then get this box out. Let's start off with pulling the glove box door. So there's 3 screws down here. I don't know if there's one missing or it just was never there. Looks like I'm going to get another driver for that one. Now while those are out, let's open it up and it should just come right out, just like that. So now we got our main heater box here. Got several pieces of ductwork, so I know this one's going to have to come out for sure. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 fasteners in here. Couple of controls we're gonna have to pull out, mark them just to make sure they get set in the right position. Yeah, I remember, never really a fun thing, but gotta do it. If you're curious, once you pull this ductwork off, this is the blend door. And this is that little piece of plastic right here that likes to break. So this one is amazingly intact. So we're going to have to be very careful not to break that. I know you can get them, or at least you used to a few years ago. The one in the Suburban broke after I put it all together, so I need to take that one apart. But yeah, we'll go ahead and mark what we need to, figure out what we need to get removed. There's a couple of other fasteners. There's one right here. And the other thing, when you do all this too, you can check to make sure that all of the ductwork is properly sealed and installed. Sometimes the foam gaskets and whatnot just drop down over time. Now if we come over to the driver's side, you'll see there's this pod right here. This is a vacuum pod. So we're gonna have to go ahead and get this vacuum line off. It slides off just like that. It's got this little hook that goes down and then the vacuum line's right in there. So that one's pretty easy to do. So pretty much everything's all disconnected under here. I did notice that the vent that goes under here to the driver's side vent is not there. Goes over to this one. I don't know why. I'm gonna have to see if I can find one of those. It's odd. Now with these old hoses, the likeliness of us getting it off easily is very, very slim. So I'm gonna end up going to the auto parts store and just getting 2 new lengths of heater hose anyways, because this is such old hose. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a razor blade and we're just gonna cut them off, replace both the hose clamps with some new hoses just for safety's sakes, really. Now that I got the hoses off, and I tell you what, these things were glued on. They were quite difficult to get off. Now comes the quote-unquote fun part. The ones with the studs coming through, like this guy, and there's one underneath right here. We gotta loosen those. The worst one is there's one down here that's between the fender well and the firewall. There's very little room to work. I've heard of some people actually cutting holes in the fender well to get to it easier. I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to get a small wrench, maybe a swivel socket, and try and work that out. So let me get to working on that, and then once we get that one out, I will show you the rest. The very difficult one underneath is pretty much in line. If you see where my ratchet is, the extension, there's the hoses, the pipes going into the heater core, so it's pretty much just under there. I was able to use a bunch of extensions with a swivel and a not so deep 7/16 socket, but it is on there and it looks like I'm getting it loose. So let me pull that out real quick. So the last one is a bolt that goes to the firewall right here, and it's a 10mm. So go ahead and pull that one out. Then we have to pull this control cable out, and the whole box should come out. I hope I didn't miss one. So we got the screw out of this guy. It's this little one. It's heads in 9/32, and then there's a little retainer. This sits, I don't even know if I can really show you. It sits right on top of this, and then the cable will come out and we'll be able to get it all off. And there is wear marks on the bracket that we'll be able to use as a reference to put it back together. So now that everything is disconnected that I can see, it doesn't mean that there might not be something that's happened before, but I do believe we'll be able to pull it out now. So let's see what happens. I did forget, and it was very apparent, there's another vacuum pot under here that has 2 more vacuum lines on it and a couple of wire retainers. But now it's all out. Let's pull it out, and it sure makes a mess. And this is the best part of having a pickup truck. It has its own work bed. Here's the heater core. It's got a couple of fasteners that hold this plate on, so let's get this all apart, get the old heater core out, clean it up a bit, and we'll make sure that the new one is correct. Well, to say the least, I've completely forgotten how you have to take this all apart, and it is a total pain. So there's a bracket here that has to come off. There is this guy that goes here. You've got to disconnect that and pull that out. There's a fastener up under here. I'll show you when I pull this off. And then I totally hid space. There's 2 hidden screws under this foam. Do not forget those. And then once those are all apart, you take all the screws around the parameter. And the other thing too, you have to line this up when you pull it out. And then it'll pull out. So on this vacuum pot right here, there is a fastener that connects the blend door actuator. So you disconnect this, take this out. You gotta kind of wiggle it and get it out in place. Take this off so you don't break it, and then you take it all apart, and there's the heater core. See the nice mess it made in here, so we're going to go ahead and clean all this up. Let's get the other heater core, make sure it's the same, put it back together, and do it all in reverse. Here's the new heater core. This one is aluminum. The old one was copper. Not a big deal. And thankfully, looks like we're all the same, so we're golden. We'll go ahead and take the few fasteners off that, get that one out, put the new one in, put it all back together. I have you all set up on a tripod so you can see the cleanup and reassembly in real time, so here we go. It's all back together. New heater core's installed, all the fasteners are installed. Got that clocked just about as best as I could remember. Before I get everything installed, I just want to come in here, pull the rubber mat back, clean up a bit from where the coolant spilled. At least this has rubber floors. In the Suburban, it's all carpet, so when it was leaking, that was a kind of a mess. But let me go ahead and get this all cleaned up, and then we'll get the heater core popped back in. Everything's cleaned up as good as I can right now. I'm actually going to leave some of the flooring apart so I can keep the mat up and let it dry. So let's go ahead and squeeze this thing back in there and get stuff hooked back up. Well, everything is back in. All the ductwork is back on. The glove box is reinstalled. Really, all I have left to do is get some new heater hoses, which I'll go run to the auto parts store now, go buy some new lengths of those, replace all that, fill it up with coolant, and we will have a leak-free cooling system. Knock on something. Because now we've got a brand new radiator, brand new heater core. That's what happens when vehicles sit. Stuff starts to leak and you got to replace stuff, but at least it's all done now, and amazingly it was fairly inexpensive. I went ahead and replaced all the heater hoses, 3/4 and 5/8 inch. Just put brand new lengths, and it was about 4 feet for each of them. New clamps, fill up the radiator. I'm not running coolant just yet. I'm still running water. I'm kind of recirculating, draining, recirculating, trying to clean out the system, but go ahead and start it up. I'm gonna let it warm up, see if the heater comes on, and yeah, that'll pretty much wrap that up. I will tell you what though, this truck it impresses me how well it runs. It's just so smooth. I have the whole cluster apart. I need to take the plastics off and test the gauges and see what's going on with them, but that'll be on another episode. Well, that'll go ahead and wrap it up on the 84 Chevy C10, replacing the heater core. It's not that bad of a job compared to some other vehicles I've done, but it isn't entertaining, that's for sure. It does take a little bit of work and some finesse, but you know, overall it was like 50 bucks for the heater core and $30 for new hoses, so it was pretty affordable and pretty easy to do. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and catch you on the next video.